The sniper's laser sight painted a red dot directly between Janet's eyes. She saw it in the reflection of Namsan Tower's glass walls, a tiny crimson star dancing across her forehead as she stepped out of the elevator onto the observation deck. 350 meters above Seoul, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows offering 360 views of the city sprawled below like a circuit board of lights, and someone already had her in their crosshairs. "Don't move." Minho's voice was barely a whisper beside her, his hand finding hers with deceptive casualness. To anyone watching, they looked like a couple enjoying the sunset view. Only Janet could feel how his fingers trembled against hers, could see the reflection of at least 5 more laser sights appearing in the glass, painting them both like targets in a shooting gallery. "She's here," Janet murmured, her medical training keeping her voice steady, even as her heart threatened to break through her ribs. "Isn't she?" "She's been here for the past hour," Minho replied, his eyes scanning the observation deck without moving his head. 13th column from the left, wearing the red scarf. "Don't look directly at her. Not yet." But Janet had already seen her, because Yuna wasn't hiding. She stood at the western windows, silhouetted against a sunset that painted Seoul in blood orange and deep purple, her long black hair catching the dying light like silk. The scar running from her temple to her jaw looked like a lightning bolt frozen on her skin. Beautiful and terrible and utterly unmissable. She was staring directly at them, and even from 50 feet away Janet could see the smile. It was the smile of someone who'd already won and was simply waiting for everyone else to realize it. "Minho?" Yuna's voice carried across the observation deck, clear and sharp as breaking glass. She spoke in English, for Janet's benefit, probably. "You came, and you brought her. How deliciously predictable." The other tourists on the observation deck were starting to notice something was wrong. The way certain people positioned around the deck weren't actually taking photos. The way their jackets bulged wrong. The way they'd suddenly gone very still, hands moving toward concealed weapons. "Everybody out," Yuna said pleasantly, as if suggesting they clear space for a birthday party. "Now." What happened next took less than 30 seconds, but would replay in Janet's mind in slow motion forever. Yuna's people, and there were at least 20 of them scattered throughout the deck, smoothly revealed weapons and began herding terrified tourists toward the elevators. No shots fired, no violence, just cold efficiency that spoke of military training and absolute confidence. Within moments, the observation deck was empty except for Yuna's forces, Minho, Janet, and the sunset painting, everything in shades of ending. "There," Yuna said, her heels clicking on the polished floor as she walked toward them with the unhurried grace of a predator who knew her prey couldn't escape. "Isn't this better? Just us. The way it should have been 3 years ago before you replaced me with her." Up close, Yuna was even more striking than her video had suggested. Beautiful in the way dangerous things often are, sharp edges and cold elegance and eyes that had seen too much darkness to ever reflect light properly again. The scar only emphasized her beauty, a flaw that somehow made everything else more perfect, by contrast. "Yuna," Minho's voice was carefully controlled, but Janet could feel the tremor in his hand. "You died. I buried you. I mourned you for 2 years before I even looked at another woman. What the hell is this?" "What's this?" Yuna laughed, and it sounded like wind chimes made of razor blades. "This is a resurrection, darling. This is a reckoning. This is me showing you exactly what happens when you give up on someone who loved you enough to survive the impossible." She circled them slowly, her people maintaining perfect perimeter positions, laser sights never wavering. "They tortured me for 6 days, Minho. Not 4 like you thought. 6. Do you want to know what 6 days of expert torture feels like? Do you want to know what they did to me while I screamed your name and you never came?" "I tried," Minho's voice cracked. "I tried to find you. I had every resource, every connection." "But you didn't try hard enough," Yuna interrupted softly. And somehow that soft voice was more terrifying than shouting would have been. Because on the 7th day, when I finally escaped, when I killed 3 guards with my bare hands and crawled through Seoul's sewers for 8 miles, I came to you. I came home, Minho. And do you know what I found? She stopped in front of them, close enough that Janet could see the madness dancing behind her eyes like flames behind glass. I found you with her, Yuna whispered, looking directly at Janet for the first time. 6 months after I died, there you were, moving on, falling in love, replacing me like I was a broken appliance you'd finally gotten around to upgrading. 6 months? Janet's voice came out stronger than she felt. You've been alive for 3 years and you waited until now to… To what? Yuna's smile widened. To come back? Oh, sweet naive little doctor. I never left. I've been here the whole time, watching, planning, building an empire from everyone Minho ever wronged. Every syndicate he destroyed, every enemy he made, every person who had a reason to want him to suffer. I found them all, united them all, gave them all one simple promise. Help me destroy Park Minho, and you can have everything he built. She gestured to the windows, to Seoul spreading below them like a kingdom waiting to be conquered. It took 3 years, but I've finally assembled an army large enough, powerful enough, coordinated enough to bring down the great Park Minho. 23 separate criminal organizations, over 3,000 soldiers, resources that make his empire look like a corner store. Minho's face had gone pale. That's impossible. I would have known. My intelligence network. Your intelligence network has been compromised for 18 months, Yuna said pleasantly. Your most trusted lieutenant? Mine. Your head of security? Mine. That friend in the prosecutor's office who's been feeding you information? Also mine. I've been dismantling you from the inside, Minho. You just didn't notice because you were too busy playing house with your pretty little replacement. If this story has your heart racing, hit that subscribe button right now because what happens next will blow your mind. Drop a comment telling me whose side you're on. Now back to the story. Janet felt Minho's hand tighten around hers, felt his entire world crashing down in real time. But her mind was racing, her medical training and her survivor's instinct both screaming that something didn't add up. You're lying, Janet said clearly, and both Yuna and Minho turned to stare at her. About at least half of this. Yuna's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. Excuse me? You heard me, Janet continued, her Nigerian accent thickening with conviction. I'm a doctor. I study human behavior, physiology, psychology, and you're lying. Your micro-expressions, your pupil dilation, the way you touched your scar 3 times while talking, classic tells. She took a step forward and Minho tried to pull her back, but she shook him off gently. You don't have 3,000 soldiers. You probably have 300 at most, and half of them are mercenaries who'll disappear the moment this goes wrong. You didn't compromise his entire network. If you had, we'd already be dead. You wouldn't need this theatrical confrontation. Janet took another step, and now she was close enough to see the fury building behind Yuna's cold mask. And you didn't watch us for 3 years building your revenge. You spent 3 years building yourself back from whatever broke you. The revenge part? That's recent. Maybe the last 6 months. Maybe less. Clever little doctor, Yuna said, her voice dropping to something dangerous. Minho always did like intelligent women. It makes it so much more satisfying when they break. She nodded to one of her men, and suddenly the massive display screens around the observation deck, normally showing tourist information and Seoul facts, flickered to life with something else entirely. Security footage. Dozens of feeds showing different locations throughout Seoul. And in every single feed, armed teams were positioned outside buildings Janet recognized from Minho's organization. Warehouses, safe houses, business fronts, even his legitimate corporate headquarters. You're right, Yuna admitted, her smile returning. I don't have 3,000 soldiers here tonight. I have 300. But I don't need more than that when every single one of your properties is rigged to explode in... She checked her watch. 14 minutes unless you do exactly what I say. The screen switched to show interior shots now, and Janet's blood turned to ice. The warehouses weren't just storage, they were full of people. Workers, security teams, families who lived in apartments above the legitimate businesses. Hundreds of innocent people all going about their evening, completely unaware they were sitting on top of enough explosives to level city blocks. You're insane, Minho breathed. Those are civilians, families, children. I know, Yuna interrupted. I made sure of it. I waited until the evening shift, when the daycare in Building 7 would still be open, when the restaurant in Building 12 would be full of dinner customers, when your headquarters would be packed with office workers finishing up late projects. She leaned closer, and her voice dropped to an intimate whisper. I wanted you to understand what it feels like to have everyone you care about in danger at once. To know that no matter what choice you make, people will die because of you. To live with that guilt for the rest of your very short life. What do you want? Minho asked, and Janet heard the defeat in his voice, heard him breaking in real time. Simple, Yuna said, straightening. I want you to watch. She gestured, and two of her men produced a tablet, pulling up a live video feed. It showed a room Janet didn't recognize. Industrial, cold, with a single chair in the center bolted to the floor. Building 7, Yuna explained. Your main distribution hub. Also home to that daycare I mentioned. 23 children currently in the basement playroom, completely unaware their building is about to become a crater. She looked at Janet, and her smile was absolutely arctic. Unless you take her place. The observation deck seemed to tilt. Janet heard Minho say no with such vehemence it was almost a shout, felt him pull her behind him protectively. But her mind was already calculating, already processing. 23 children, 23 families destroyed if she did nothing, versus one life, hers, if she agreed. The chair is for her, Yuna continued, enjoying Minho's anguish like fine wine. She sits in it, gets strapped in. And then I let everyone in all those buildings go free. I call off the explosives, I disappear. And you get to watch via live feed as the love of your life experiences exactly what I experienced, 6 days of expert torture. Only she won't escape. She won't survive. And you'll live the rest of your life knowing you chose her over hundreds of innocent people, and she died anyway. Or, Yuna added pleasantly, you refuse. I detonate everything in 13 minutes, and you both live knowing you killed all those people, including 23 children under the age of 7. Your choice. Minho was shaking his head, already reaching for his phone. I'll evacuate them. I'll call my people, clear the buildings. You won't have time, Yuna said. 13 minutes to evacuate 7 buildings spread across Seoul, to convince hundreds of people to leave immediately without causing panic, to get children away from a daycare when parents aren't there to pick them up, to empty a restaurant full of people who are mid-meal. She checked her watch again. 12 minutes, 40 seconds now. Tick-tock. Janet felt a strange calm settle over her. The same calm she'd felt in medical school during her first emergency surgery when a patient was coding and everyone was panicking and she'd simply acted. Her hands had known what to do before her brain caught up. Her training had overridden her fear. I'll do it, she said clearly. No, Minho spun to face her, his eyes wild, his tattooed hands gripping her shoulders. Janet, no. I'll find another way. I'll evacuate them. I'll call in favors. You'll fail, Janet interrupted gently, placing her hands over his. Minho, you know you'll fail. 12 minutes isn't enough time. She designed it that way. I don't care. Minho's voice was breaking. I don't care about buildings or organizations or even innocent people if it means losing you. I just got you. I just finally let myself love you. I won't. Yes, you will, Janet said firmly, and she cupped his face with both hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. Because I'm not going to die, I'm going to survive, and you're going to find me. How can you possibly— Because I'm Nigerian, Janet said fiercely. I survived Lagos. I survived medical school in a foreign country where people doubted me every day. I survived 3 years of loneliness in your mansion. I survived an attack on our home, a battle in a factory, and everything else life has thrown at me. What makes you think some psychotic ex-girlfriend with a torture fetish is going to be what finally breaks me? Despite everything, despite the guns and the lasers and the countdown to catastrophe, Minho laughed. It came out broken and desperate and full of pride all at once. My magnificent, insane, fearless wife, he whispered. Your only wife, Janet corrected, then pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like goodbye and promises and defiance all mixed together. When they broke apart, she turned to Yuna. I have conditions. Yuna's eyebrows rose. You're not in a position to negotiate. Neither are you, Janet shot back. You want him broken? You want him to suffer watching me? Then I need to actually be alive for that to work, which means you keep me alive, which means we negotiate. For a long moment, Yuna just stared at her. Then, incredibly, she smiled. A real smile this time, not the cold mask she'd been wearing. I can see why he loves you. You've got spine. All right, doctor, what are your conditions? 1. You evacuate those buildings anyway. All of them. I don't care what you do to me, but those people go free. Done, Yuna said immediately. I was going to anyway. I'm not actually a monster, regardless of what you think. I just needed leverage. 2. You give Minho proof of life every 24 hours. Video feeds showing I'm alive and relatively intact. Reasonable, Yuna agreed. Granted. 3. No permanent damage, no disfigurement, no removing body parts. You can make me hurt, but you can't make me broken. Yuna's smile widened. Now that's interesting. Why? Worried about being pretty for him when he rescues you? No, Janet said coldly. I'm a doctor. My hands are my career. My mind is my weapon. You take either of those and I'm useless. And if I'm useless, then Minho has nothing to come back for, and your whole revenge plot falls apart because he'll just let me die rather than watch me suffer as a shell of myself. The observation deck went quiet. Even Yuna's soldiers seemed impressed by the logic. 4 conditions, Janet continued, and this one's non-negotiable. Not if when. Minho comes for me, you fight fair. No explosives, no traps, no killing innocent people as collateral. You and your soldiers versus him and his. That's the game. That's what you really want anyway. A fair fight to prove you're better than him. Yuna studied her for a long moment. You really think he can find you? I know he can, Janet said with absolute certainty. Because I'm going to help him. How? You won't know where you are. You'll be blindfolded during transport, kept in a location only I know. I'm a doctor, Janet interrupted. I can count heartbeats to measure time. I can feel air pressure changes to estimate altitude. I can analyze sounds and smells and temperature to narrow location. I can use my own body as a laboratory. And most importantly, she held up her left hand where her wedding ring caught the dying sunlight. I'm betting this ring has a tracker in it. Am I right, Minho? Minho's expression confirmed it. Yuna laughed. Genuinely laughed. Oh, this is perfect. This is so much better than I planned. Fine. All 4 conditions accepted. But I'm adding one of my own. If he doesn't find you in 6 days, exactly the amount of time I was tortured, you're mine. Permanently. Whatever's left of you after 6 days, I keep. Deal. Deal, Janet said without hesitation. No deal, Minho roared, but Yuna's soldiers were already moving, surrounding Janet, pulling her away from him even as he fought to reach her. Minho, listen to me, Janet called as they dragged her toward the service elevator. 6 days. I'll stay alive for 6 days. Come find me. Come get me. And bring flowers when you do. I'm tired of only getting them as apologies. Janet. His voice broke completely. "I love you," she called back, "and I'm not dying today, so stop looking at me like I'm already gone and start planning how you're going to find me." The service elevator doors closed, cutting off her view of Minho's devastated face, cutting off the sunset, cutting off everything except Yuna's cold smile and the soldiers surrounding her. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid," Yuna said as the elevator descended. "I genuinely can't tell which." "Neither," Janet replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm just incredibly loved, and that makes me dangerous in ways you don't understand yet." Yuna laughed. "We'll see about that. Tell me, doctor, how much do you actually know about pain tolerance? Because you're about to get a masterclass." The elevator reached the ground floor. A van was waiting, engine running, windows tinted so dark they were almost mirrors. Janet was pushed inside, and she caught one last glimpse of Seoul's lights through the van windows before a hood was pulled over her head. Darkness. But in that darkness, Janet's mind was already working, already counting, already memorizing. The van turned left out of the parking lot. She felt the G-force, estimated the turn radius. 15 seconds at approximately 40 kilometers per hour before turning right. Another 30 seconds straight. The smell of the Han River. They were heading east. Air pressure unchanged, staying at similar altitude, not going into the mountains yet. Her medical training had taught her the human body was an instrument capable of incredible precision. Every sense could be calibrated, every perception measured. She just had to stay conscious, stay alert, stay alive. Behind her, still at Namsan Tower, Minho stood at the windows watching the van disappear into Seoul's traffic. His hands were pressed against the glass so hard it should have cracked. His entire body was shaking with rage and fear, and something that transcended both. 6 days, he whispered to his reflection. She said 6 days. He pulled out his phone, started making calls, his entire network mobilizing within minutes. Every favor called in, every resource deployed, every connection activated. Park Min-ho, Seoul's most feared mafia boss, was going to war. But this time, he wasn't fighting for territory or power or pride. He was fighting to save the only person who'd ever made him feel human. 350 meters below, the van carrying Janet merged onto the expressway heading towards Seoul's industrial district. Inside, Janet was counting heartbeats, memorizing turn patterns, cataloguing sensory data. She'd meant what she'd told Yuna. She wasn't dying today, but what she hadn't told anyone, not even Minho, was the secret she'd discovered 2 weeks ago. The secret she'd been waiting for the right moment to share. The secret that made survival not just necessary but absolutely critical. She was 8 weeks pregnant, and she'd be damned if her child was born in a torture chamber or grew up without knowing their father, which meant she had 6 days to stay alive by any means necessary. 6 days to use every ounce of intelligence, training, and sheer stubborn will to survive. 6 days until Minho found her. And when he did, when he came through whatever door they were keeping her behind, she was going to tell him about the baby, about their future, about the family they were going to build after they burned Yuna's revenge to ashes. The van turned again. Janet counted, measured, memorized. 6 days. She could survive anything for 6 days. She was Nigerian. She was a doctor. She was Park Min-ho's wife. And she was carrying their child. Yuna had no idea what kind of mother she'd just kidnapped. The van stopped. Doors opened. Rough hands pulled Janet out into cold air that smelled of metal and chemicals and fear. "Welcome to your new home," Yuna's voice said from somewhere to her left. "I hope you're comfortable with medical equipment, doctor, because we're going to become very intimate with what the human body can endure." The hood was ripped off. Janet blinked in harsh fluorescent light. She was in a warehouse. Massive. Empty except for a single chair in the center bolted to the floor, exactly like Yuna had shown them. Medical equipment arranged around it in a circle. IV stands. Monitoring devices. Things Janet recognized from emergency rooms, and things she recognized from her worst nightmares about medical malpractice, and standing beside the chair wearing a white coat over her tactical gear like some nightmare version of a doctor, was Yuna. "Shall we begin?" Yuna asked, gesturing to the chair like a hostess inviting a guest to sit for dinner. Janet looked at the chair, at the equipment, at Yuna's expectant face, at the 20 soldiers positioned around the warehouse perimeter. Then she looked down at her stomach, still flat, showing no sign of the life growing inside, and made a decision. "Actually," Janet said calmly, "before we start, there's something you should know, something that changes the entire game you think you're playing." Yuna's smile faltered slightly. "What?" Janet met her eyes directly, and when she spoke, her voice carried across the warehouse with absolute certainty. "I'm pregnant. 8 weeks, which means you're not just torturing Minho's wife, you're torturing the mother of his child, his heir, the future of his entire bloodline." The warehouse went completely silent. Yuna's face went through a series of expressions so fast they blurred together: shock, rage, calculation, and something that might have been fear. "You're lying," she said finally. "Am I?" Janet pulled a folded paper from her pocket, an ultrasound image she'd kept hidden, waiting for the right moment to share with Minho. She held it up. 8 weeks, 2 days. Confirmed by 3 different tests and 1 ultrasound. That's my baby. That's his baby. And if you hurt me badly enough to cause a miscarriage, you're not just destroying Minho's love, you're destroying his legacy, his future, everything he's been building. She took a step closer to Yuna, and now her voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. "And more importantly, you'll be the woman who killed an innocent child to get revenge on a man. You'll be exactly the monster you claim you're not. You'll be the villain in a story where you were supposed to be the victim fighting back." "So, here's what's really going to happen," Janet continued. "You're going to keep me alive and relatively healthy for 6 days. You're going to provide prenatal vitamins and proper nutrition. You're going to make sure whatever you do to me doesn't harm the baby. Because if I lose this child because of you, Minho won't just destroy you, he'll erase you. He'll delete you from existence so completely that historians will debate whether you ever existed at all." Yuna was staring at her like she'd grown a second head. "And when he comes for me, and he will come, you'll have to decide, are you someone who tortures pregnant women? Or are you someone who has the strength to let go of revenge and find a better path?" Janet sat down in the chair, never breaking eye contact with Yuna. "So, are we playing the torture game, or are we playing something much more interesting?" The warehouse was absolutely silent. Every soldier was staring at Yuna, waiting for her response, waiting to see what kind of person she would choose to be. And Yuna, standing there in her white coat, with her scarred face and her 3 years of carefully constructed revenge, looked at Janet's stomach, then at her face, then back at her stomach. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "He doesn't know." "No," Janet confirmed. "I was going to tell him after all this was over, after we'd survived your war, after we could celebrate instead of worry." "Why?" Yuna asked, and for the first time she sounded genuinely curious rather than cold. "Why tell me? Why give me this leverage?" "Because," Janet said simply, "you're not the monster you're trying to be. And I'm betting that somewhere under all that pain and rage and need for revenge, you remember what it's like to want a future, to want a family, to want something more than vengeance." She paused, then added quietly, "And because I think you know exactly what happened during those 6 days of torture 3 years ago. And I think it's not what you told Minho. And I think that secret is eating you alive more than his supposed betrayal ever could." Yuna went absolutely rigid. "You know nothing about—" "I know you're lying about something," Janet interrupted. "My whole career is reading people's bodies, understanding when something doesn't add up medically or psychologically, and your story doesn't add up. So before you torture me, before you start this whole revenge plot, answer me one question honestly. What really happened during those 6 days? The warehouse seemed to hold its breath, and Yuna, for the first time since this entire nightmare began, looked uncertain. To be continued. If you're sitting there screaming at your screen right now, good. That means you need to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications because part 3 is going to absolutely destroy you. We're talking about secrets that will flip this entire story on its head. We're talking about Yuna's real truth. We're talking about Minho's desperate search. And we're talking about Janet fighting for 2 lives instead of 1. Drop a comment right now. Did Janet make the right move telling Yuna about the pregnancy? What do you think really happened during Yuna's 6 days of torture? And who do you think survives this, Team Janet or Team Yuna? Hit that like button if this cliffhanger just ruined your whole day in the best way possible. Share this with someone who needs their heart broken and rebuilt in the same breath. Part 3 drops soon, and I promise you are not ready for what's coming. Trust me on this one.